All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. And as part of the Rankin Technical College Application and Website Development, or AWD1111 Database-Driven Web Development class, I am creating a series of video presentations based on the Valley of Code, which is a website by Mr. Flavio Copes. So far, I have gone through and done a series on Mr. Copes's HTML handbook and CSS handbook, 5 videos here and 10 here. And this is now my second video into his JavaScript handbook. So these first three, these three that you see here, these three, all right, these are working on client-side development. From here, we'll go on to the Node and the React, where we will talk about server-side development. Okay, so that said, let me jump back in here. And we left off on expressions. An expression is a single unit of JavaScript code that the engine can evaluate, return a value. Expressions can vary in complexity. Okay. These are simple expressions right here. Here's some arithmetic expressions, some string expressions, some logical expressions. All right. And as it says, more will be discussed later when we talk about objects, functions, and arrays. The operators, well, some of these we've already looked at. Some of these should just make sense to you. Everybody should understand the addition operator, which also can be used to concatenate string values. All right. The subtraction operator, the division operator, the remainder operator, also known as the modulus operator. Remember that when you do certain calculations, you can come up with NaN, capital N, lowercase a, capital N, which is not a number. The multiplication operator. Now, the exponentiation operator is fairly new. You can still use math.pow, but if I've got my choice, as an example here, if I want to say, let's just grab this quickly. I'm going to give 2 examples. If I can say, let A equals, and let's say I want this to be, I don't know, 5 cubed. So I can say 5, oops, like that. And again, it will give me 5 times 5 times 5, or 125. I can also say let B equal math.pow, and I can put in there 5, 3. And that will do the same thing. Now, most people today will pick the second one because it's oftentimes supported by multiple languages, plus it's less typing. All right, but either one of those should work. I think the P in pow is capitalized and not lowercase. Precedence, this is back from the days. This is the stuff basically that you learned back in maybe grade school or middle school. You do multiplication, division, and modulus, which is a form of division. So you do multiplication, division, and modulus before you do addition and subtraction. That said, you can always override with the use of parentheses. Okay. Comparison operators. There's actually more here than what are mentioned, but they say these are the disquality comparison operators. I never heard that term before. Less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, and there's 4 equality operators. All right. Now, this should be review for you by now, but really, it's very rare that you'll want to use the double equal sign. You'll almost always use the triple equal sign, which is typically called identity and equality. So it checks not just to make sure that the values are the same, but you're checking apples with apples. Remember that if you do something like this, it's kind of a poor example, but it's the best one I can think of. So let me get rid of that. And let me say, let A equals 7. Let B equals single quote 7 single quote. All right. If A equal B, that will come back as true. But if you say if A triple equal B, that since that's identity and equality, that will be false. That's the best thing I can tell you about it. It doesn't matter if that's in single quotes or if it's in double quotes. All right. Conditionals. When a comparison takes place, you talk about conditionals. If is, nothing new here. All right. So if it's true, do something. You can say if something is false, do something. All right. And of course, we've got the else with it. You can also have else ifs and as many else ifs as you want or need to have. You can optionally put one ending else on the end. So if none of the ifs or else if were true, they call it a fallback here. All right. Now, probably we're only 5 to 10 minutes into this. 6 minutes. Good. So let's talk arrays. And after we talk arrays, this presentation may end up being a little longer than the other ones here in JavaScript because we're going to talk about a few different things. An array, again, is a collection of elements. Arrays are objects. Remember, when you work with arrays, there are a lot of different ways that you can set them up. I have never, ever done anything that looks like this. I don't know why you would want to. I would always do it like this. It's less typing and it makes more sense. Remember, the key thing about arrays in JavaScript, unlike C#, unlike Java, all right, is an array can hold any type of value, even another array. So here we've mixed and we've got a number, a string, and an array of strings. You can have multi-dimension arrays. Some books will say there is no such thing. It's an array of arrays. They're wordsmithing. It's pretty much the same thing. Remember that all arrays are zero-based. So the first element is element 0. The second element is element 1. The third element is number 2, etc. Now it says you can initialize a new array with a set of values using this syntax, which first initializes an array of 12 elements and then fills each one with 0. I've never done that before, but it's neat that they offer something like this. So again, that would be the equivalent. You probably already know this. That is the same thing as saying, array 0 equals 0, array 1 equals 0. Imagine I wrote it for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then finally, array 11 equals 0. What's nice about this is in the past, all right, and I don't know if that word array there is, I don't think you'd want to say that. Okay, but I guess you could do it like that. So let's suppose we had an array in the past that was called grades. So we said let grades equal, or let grades equal, I think we can do it like that. That would create a new array. But in the past, if we wanted to take grades and we wanted to fill it up with 12 zeros, all right, we would do something like this then. We would say for int LCV, our loop control variable, equals 0, LCV less than grades dot length. I think that's a lowercase, but it could be uppercase for the word length. Plus LCV grades LCV equals 0. So a lot of the grunt work, so to speak, doing it this way has been fixed by allowing you to do something like that. All right, it is length. Okay, so it is the length property with a little one. It says, notice you can set the length of an array. All right, but if you come in there and add a bigger value, nothing bad's going to happen. Here they've created an array with 3 elements, element 0, element 1, and element 2. Then they reset the length to 2, so basically it just removes that element. All right. How to add an item to an array. If you want to add it to the end of the array, you push. When you want to add it to the beginning of the array, you use unshift. To remove, if you want to remove it from the end, you use pop. If you want to remove it from the beginning, you use shift. As mentioned here, you can join 2 or more arrays using concat. You can also use the spread operator. And I will tell you that this is much more in vogue to do this. The ... A, comma ... B means everything in A, everything in B. It will naturally concatenate them together. So of course it would be 1, 2, 3, 4. How to find a specific item in an array, as the text there says, you can use the find method of an array to see if something does exist. And it returns true if it finds the item. So it returns the first item that returns true, and it returns undefined if it's not found. As mentioned here on the top of page, or bottom of page 23 and the top of page 24, there's also a find index that's similar to find, but it returns the index of the first item that returns true. And if it's not found, it returns undefined. So it's a quick way of seeing if something indeed does exist. All right. Now, that's it for arrays. But rather than going on and doing strings, which I'm going to do, all right, I'm going to break off from here. And let me tell you that I am preparing, I'm going to put it into a GitHub repo, a bunch of articles and examples, etc., that we will use. And it's broken up into a bunch of different sections. So I've got stuff in there on HTML, stuff in there on CSS, stuff in there on JavaScript, all on the client side. Stuff in there on React, stuff in there on Express, stuff in there on Node, stuff in there on the MERN stack, stuff on CRUD operations. So you're going to all get that, but I've got to, it's very big right now. Last time I checked, it was between 1 and 200 meg, all right, which I thought was kind of ridiculous, so I'm going to probably cut it down. One of the articles that will be in there will be this one. Java Array Cheat Sheet with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 14 of the most used array methods. Another article that will be in there will be this one that says 20 JavaScript array methods every developer should know. So I want to go through both of these articles, even though there'll be some duplication between them. All right. And one thing I should have done when we first started is this: learn JavaScript easier with these 4 free resources. Freecodecamp.org is a fantastic resource. They've got tons of stuff for free online. And it's JavaScript, there'll be HTML, there'll be whole websites in there, there'll be Node, there'll be React. You name it, it's there. All right. Wes Bowes, I've mentioned in earlier lessons when we were talking about the CSS stuff. Wes Bowes also has a JavaScript in 30 days course that you can take for free. Scrimba is a very nice thing. Some of their instructors have different senses of humor, we'll put it that way. But they have a Learn JavaScript for free also, and you can see that, again, it's a 7-hour tutorial. Traversy Media, I've already talked about Traversy Media before. All right. And I just leave it at that, okay? All right. So let's start, no, not with this one. Let's start with the other one right here. So these are, this is a JavaScript cheat sheet by Kevin Kamba. All right, it's fairly recent, May of this year. And the reason I like it is it's got a lot of kind of, for lack of better words, a lot of array methods that are more, I'm trying to think of the right word here. They've been around a while. And there's some newer ones in here also. So like I said, I'm going to go through this. Then I'm going to go through the 20 JavaScript array methods every developer should own. That'll end this lecture. Then in the next lecture, I'm going to pick it up on strings, and then I'm going to go over this cheat sheet on strings. All right. So let's take a look at some of this. Again, there's nothing wrong with using concat to join two or more arrays together. Notice when you do that, you put it into another array, because the idea with a concat is it does not change the existing arrays. Rather, it creates a new array with adjoined values. Again, you can also do this using spread. All right, copy within. I don't think I've ever used this. Copies array elements to another position in the array, overwriting the existing values. Key thing there, this method overwrites the original array. All right. Entries, as it says, it returns an array iterator object with key value pairs. So it would show you that 0 is the key, banana is the values, 1 is the key, orange is the value, 2 is the key, and apple is the value, etc. All right. The next one that's in here, the every method, as it says, checks if all elements of an array pass a test. So in other words, when we look here, we are calling this function that says return age greater than or equal to 18. And we're calling it for everybody in ages. So that'll return true, but that will return false, because that person is not greater than or equal to 18. Next, the fill method, and as it says, it fills the specified elements in an array with a static value. So this basically would replace all of these with the word kiwi. Filter, and filter like spread and like map are more ES5, ES6 things that have been created. All right, and it's as it says here, the filter method creates an array filled with array elements that pass a test. So what you can do is you can create an array. So we're creating here ages.filter check adult, it'll return new array. Typically you'd put it into a new array. So I'd say, and why they use var there, I don't know. It should be let. But we could have said like let adults equal and put that filter on there. And then it would have only had this one and this one and this one. It would have skipped 16. All right. Find is like every, but it says it returns the value of the first element that passes a test. All right. So this would return what? The first value that's greater than 18. All right. So greater than or equal to, so it will return this one right here. Find index we already talked about. Rather than returning the value, all right, it returns the index. For each is a slicker way to write a for loop. It is designed to iterate or go through the elements in an array. So here we could have done this with a regular for loop. All right, but rather, so what do we have here? We're going through here, and numbers.forEach, what it's saying is for each one of these numbers in here, call my function. So we're resetting the value, or we're creating an array where each value is the value that was in there times 10. So 650, 440, 120, and 40, as they show right here. Includes, as mentioned there, it determines whether an array contains a specified element or does not. All right. Index of returns the position. I think we've talked about that already. IsArray. The IsArray method determines whether an object is an array or is not an array. And I don't know if I did this. It should probably say this function returns true if the object is an array and false if it is not an array. All right. Join, as it says, it converts the element of an array into a string. So basically, join implodes. In other words, it takes this array with 4 elements and turns it into a string with the word and between each element. So banana space, and space, orange space, and space, apple space, and space, mango. Last index searches the array for the position, but it gives you the last position. All right. Map is a really neat function. As it says there, it creates a new array with the results of calling a function on each array element. So what are we doing here? We've got an array called numbers with these 4 values in it. And then we're creating another array called X, where we're grabbing each value and getting its square root. So 2, 3, 4, 5, as it says here. Pop removes the last element in the array. Push adds the new element to the end of the array. Reduce is another neat one. As it says, it executes a provided function for each value of an array and reduces the array to a single value. That's the key thing. For lack of better words, it's really an aggregate. All right? So what this is going to do right here, this says, I want you to go through and grab every number that's in there and call the getSum function on it. Start with 0. So this should be 15.5 plus 2.3 plus 1.1 plus 4.7, and according to this, that's 24. Reduce right, which I've never used, executes the provided function for each value of the array from right to left. Reverse, kind of neat. There's no, I don't believe at least that JavaScript has a sort in descending order. It probably does, but you can always just call sort, the array.sort method, and then run reverse on that. Sum checks to see whether or not anything, any array element passes a test. So this is going to check if any of these values are greater than or equal to 18. And you can see 2 of them are, so it'll return true. Slice. Now this is new because basically it creates a brand new array when you do slice. So as it says, it selects the item starting at a given start point in the array and ends at a given endpoint. Again, it creates a new array. Shift removes the first item from an array, sorts. Splice, I think I've already mentioned. ToString returns the string of all the values separated by commas. Unshift adds stuff to the beginning of the array. Value of returns the array. That's pretty much it. And actually, this took a little longer than I thought it was going to, so I think, because we are now at 26 minutes, that I'm going to do this one as its own presentation. So I'm going to come back in just a moment and do the 20 JavaScript array methods every developer should know. So I will be back to do those shortly.